Hello, and welcome to your NARSA Weekly Update for the week commencing Monday, the 27th of October 2025. It's Gary here again, and you know what? This kind of crept up pretty quickly, but this is the 250th episode of the NARSA Weekly Update. 250 episodes brought to you every Monday for the past... what's that? Almost 4 years now. 5 years now. I guess that would be almost 5 years coming up to the end of this year. That's kind of incredible. I had seen the number creep up over the last wee while and meant to mention it before, but today, just as I was preparing things for the recording, I noticed it was number 250. So congratulations and thank you very, very much to every single person that's been involved in organising this podcast. It's not just me. I do the recordings, but you know, back in the day, we had Chris Lovett down in Seattle, formerly of San Francisco Rangers Supporters Club, who was really the architect behind all the technology that we have used and will continue to use over the next wee while, including the systems for uploading and tracking and managing and the YouTube account and things like that. Of course, Brian Campbell came up with the idea many, many, many years ago, and I took it and ran with it, and here we are at quarter of a century. That's not even right. Quarter of 1,000, I guess, if we're just doing the basic mathematics. But 250 episodes, that's not insignificant. And of course, there's more episodes than that in the catalogue that we have, because we did some interviews back in the day with some Rangers legends and such. So yeah, that's a big deal. And I'm very, very proud of that. I'm very, very happy with that, and very, very grateful to everyone who's taken the time to listen over the last almost 5 years. And the great news is that I do have an announcement to make today about what our event is going to look like next year, 2026. If you listened to the episode last week, you'll have known that I said that I was going to actually make an announcement as exactly what the location was going to be and the dates. And I do have that coming up a wee bit later. So yeah, on this 250th episode, I'm just going to get kind of straight into what it was. And in terms of the last week here, I think we're really seen, well, bad and good in that order. You know, with this time of recording last week, right now it's, 11:45 a.m. my time. And we had just announced Danny Rule as our new manager. I had said Rule because that's what I thought it looked like phonetically, but obviously not. And it's Rule, and he got off to an interesting start in terms of his actual Rangers tenure. You know, we had that, what was that, on Wednesday, Tuesday, I think it was. They had the kind of hastily organised press conference with the chairman, Andrew Kavanagh. They had Patrick Stewart, the CEO. They had Kevin Thelwell, the sporting director, and then they had Danny Rule there in as well. And I have to say, honestly, folks, the first time that I heard that it was actually happening, because there was no real announcement, and not that I would be party to any announcements or anything like that anyway, but they just kind of hastily organised it, and I was pretty upset about that. I thought that was very, very ill-timed. I thought that it was interfering with his opportunity to go and get to meet and properly work with the players with a very, very critical European game coming up. And maybe that did have an impact on the overall result, which I guess we'll get to when we get to the game segment here. But, you know, when I actually watched it back, I caught the very tail end of it, and then I rewound it and watched it back, and I actually quite liked it. I thought each of them spoke well. Especially the manager. I mean, that's really who we're there to tune into, and I think it was a smart move on behalf of the hierarchy at Rangers as well, just to say, listen, we're not going to keep this going forever and ever and ever. Obviously, the search didn't go the way that we were hoping. It was a lot more public than we anticipated it was going to be, and things didn't materialise the way that we were anticipating they were going to materialise over the course of the 2+ weeks that it took to appoint Danny Rule. So, you know, they kind of faced up to that. They answered some questions on that, each of them from their own vantage point. And then we move on. It doesn't matter whether you like Andrew Kavanagh, Patrick Stewart, or Kevin Thelwell. They all had their say. They all spoke relatively well. You know, you read what they say in print, and you're like, yeah, that looks really good. You see them saying it, and, you know, based on the history that we have, the short history that we have with all three guys, you know, you either believe it or you don't. You either like it or you don't. I felt better afterwards, having heard the words from their mouths and such, and more the recognition that, listen, folks, we know this is not going anywhere near to plan. That was not the plan for that to happen, and we're now in a situation where we're playing recovery, and it's not making the mistakes that makes you a bad person. It's how you recover from those mistakes. And these are public mistakes these guys are making, but the mistakes are compounding on each other in terms of overall bad recruitment, possibly dodgy or questionable appointments to the club hierarchy and that sort of thing. So yeah, I felt I took it back. I was in a wee bit of a rage, I have to say, in the beginning, and then after I watched it on the YouTube channel, I thought, you know what, fair play. They've acknowledged what's happened. They are saying, give us time to bed Danny in, give him all the support that he needs to be able to be a success in the role, and let's move on. So I'm glad they did that before the European game. That's really what I'm absolutely saying now. But that's when we get to talk about the bad part, because obviously there was no immediate manager bounce in terms of that performance and such. And for me right now, where we're at overall as a season, I don't need to tell you how difficult a season it's been for everybody concerned with the club, and everyone who's a fan or a supporter of the club. But for me right now, it's a tale of two tables, is what I should say. And the two tables, of course, are the Europa League table, where we sit 36th of 36 teams with 3 defeats, -5 goal difference, and we've only scored 1 goal, and we've lost all 3 games, and next up is Roma, which is one of the ones where you're saying, you never know what that's going to look like. And the previous teams are the ones that we would be saying we should be expecting and demanding and working for all 3 points. And we didn't get any from those 3 games. And then, so that's grim reading and certainly laughable if you're not a fan of our great club. And then you've got the SPFL Premiership table, where we're now up to the lofty position of 5th in the table. But of the 9 games that we've played, we've had 2 victories. Of the 9 games we've played, we have 2 victories. We've got 6 draws. We've only got 1 loss, which is fair, but the 6 draws, that's 12 points gone there. And lo and behold, how many points are we behind the leaders right now? I don't need to tell you that. I'll probably get to tell you that when we get to the game here from yesterday. But we've scored 11 goals in 9 games and conceded 10. So that's pretty much just over a goal a game scored and a goal a game lost for every single game. And that's the story of the season thus far. We're not scoring anywhere near enough goals, and we're letting in far too many. And it's just nowhere like the standards that we're supposed to have as Rangers Football Club. And by the way, the 2 tables, they just don't lie. That is the story of the season, and it's been a very, very sad story. So it's going to be really interesting to see how things unfold over the next wee while. Danny Röhl's first week in charge was turbulent, and probably the leading up to that was turbulent as well, if he did indeed have his representatives tell Rangers to remove him from the reckoning. And we'll probably never get to the bottom of that, or it maybe doesn't really even matter so much. But the one thing about Danny Röhl that I do like in the what's that now, probably 4 interviews that I've seen or heard him giving, is that he speaks sense to me. Now, this is not the new romantic manager where I'm like, oh, this is the one that's really going to help us. I genuinely mean that. Like, when I'm listening, I don't have to decipher anything that he's saying. And I don't mean that from an accent bias perspective or anything. I mean, I understand what he means when he's talking. He's very, very clear in what he's trying to express, even if he gets the odd word wrong, English being his second language. And the key thing for me is if he can do that with us, then hopefully I have to anticipate that he's doing that with the players. And if he's genuinely doing that with the players, then we've got a much better chance of them being less confused and knowing and understanding what the roles are, knowing and understanding what they're going to have to do when things don't go their way, and then moving forward with purpose to actually winning each of the games. And the thing I really liked about what he said, I think it was yesterday after the Kilmarnock game, where he said, I'm not the type of manager that's married to any particular type of style of process in terms of formation or anything like that. My formation is whatever formation is required to win the game, and that's what we need. We've been so bereft of that for such a long time. So he has an opportunity. I mean, it's early enough in the season where he has an opportunity to do something good for this season and heal some of the scars that the players obviously have, even the new guys who have joined us after some horrendous results and some behaviour from the fans that they would probably find a little bit shocking and daunting and intimidating at the same time. So, we're going to have to see what that looks like, because I tell you one thing right now, I am absolutely fed up to my back teeth about rebuilding for next season. At least in previous seasons, talking about that was something that we did a wee bit later on in the season, but to be doing that after basically a month of the season, which is what it kind of amounted to, that's just garbage. It's not befitting of Rangers Football Club or our fan base. So on to the game segment for this week, and of course the first game that we had was Thursday's 3-0 disaster against Brann, and it was just terrible, and that's the one that's got us rooted firmly to the bottom of the table, and that was the worst of the three for me in Europe. The first half was kind of okay, but we can't complain at all. I don't think about, as I said, the tables don't lie, and I don't think we can. I certainly am not complaining about any of the results that we've had thus far. In Europe, we've deserved every single one of the 0 points that we've got thus far. We did create a couple of chances in the first half, notably, ironically, for Youssef Chermiti, who just had a great opportunity from a header and absolutely fluffed it. You could see almost literally from the second he hit it, he knew it wasn't in. His body language, he was just so upset about that. Join the club, Youssef, and it wasn't great. And then we lose, of course, the first goal, from a familiar breakaway, isn't it really? Just down at our right-hand side, and there's just the guy runs through on his own. And then it looks like it depends what angle you look at, but it looks like he just gets an absolute masterstroke of good fortune, because it looks like he's going to shoot, and then it looks like he looks up, and then he just kind of doesn't do either of the two of them, and the ball trundles through perfectly for their guy to tap it in, and you've got Nico Raskin, who's just in the absolute opposite side of the guy, nowhere near close to being able to do anything material to stop that ball going in. And just garbage. So then you think about, you know what, that's maybe not too bad going in at 1-0 at half time. And then in the second half, it's just the same. It was just the same, sort of vibe, the same energy, the same body language and stuff that you could see. And then, Antman gives away a silly free kick, nowhere near where he should be, to be perfectly honest. And it was needless. The guy was going away. It wasn't like one of these ones where you're saying, that's actually a good free kick to give away. Boy swings it in completely free header. Many times we've seen that this season, folks. Man, oh man. And the third was, do you know the third one? I actually watched the highlights back last night, and the third one, they built it out from the back, and at not one point in that whole attack, it went right up their left-hand side, down our right-hand side, and at no point, at any point in that whole attack, were any of the Rangers players anywhere near any of their players. We got a wee, especially in the middle of the goal, in the middle of the 18-yard box, when the guy gets an opportunity to control it and then rifle at home. There was a bit of a deflection. I think it was actually off Raskin's again, actually, but not his fault or anything like that. And just the defending was non-existent. Like, we were nowhere near them for the entire move, and it's just absolutely ridiculous. And we just got our arses handed to us once again, and it's going to be very, very, very difficult to try and save it. Was it about 9 points? I mean, we've still got 5 games left. 9 points from 5 games, maybe 9 points from 5 games with this team. Likely not, folks. So we're just going to have to see exactly what happens. But positives, the more game time for Chermiti. Maybe that helped him on the weekend. With him starting there, of course, no injuries, and I don't know that it was a doing where you're kind of thinking, we're really lucky to get away with 3-0, but they were the ones that were more likely to score rather than us. And it just wasn't good enough. The negatives, the entire game, it just didn't look like we were up for it. Honestly, we were kind of, it looks like we were waiting for something to happen. That's what it looked like to me. And we had no belief. We had no way to really counteract what they were doing or counterattack on what they were doing. And it's just nowhere near good enough. In terms of the stats, it said we had 47% possession, 7 shots, on goal with 1 on target versus 9 shots on goal with 5 on target, and they scored 3 of those, so that's over 50% rate back there for them. In terms of the referee, I don't actually recall him getting too involved in the game. I don't recall him getting too annoyed. Now, here's the caveat. I watched this game, and I would say watched in inverted commas, because I was actually driving from Orange County, California to San Diego, California for a coaching conference that I was attending down there in San Diego. And so I had it on and was glancing over as I was driving every now and again, but just kind of getting more from the commentator, and then the highlights kind of filled in all the blanks for me as we were driving down there. So I didn't get a chance to really absorb myself in the game, and I'm not too disappointed. I'm not going to be rushing back to watch that one. I can tell you that. Then it was Sunday's 3-1 home win against Kilmarnock, where we finally get a victory at Ibrox in season 25-26. I think we must have done that in acknowledgement or in honour of the 250th episode of the NARSA Weekly Update. But who would have thought, honestly, it would have taken until the 26th of October to get our first win at Ibrox in the league. You know, I know we've won there in Europe and the League Cup, you know, in the same season. But to get a victory in the league, I would have, if someone had said that at the beginning, by the way, you're not going to win until your first game, until the 26th of October, I would have said, I honestly would have said, like, was Ibrox closed for an event, for a concert? Did we get moved away? What happened? Is it the same as last season where we were at Hampden? Nope. All the answers to those questions. It's just the way that the season has gone. And we got Derek Cornelius open the scoring with a very well worked goal. I thought was actually a really good goal to see and get him putting in there. And then we have Jack Butland doing a very uncharacteristic, complete and utter miss, a flap. I don't even know if it wasn't even as good as a flap. You know, he was just nowhere near it from the very beginning. It was as if he didn't track the flight of the ball, immediately reacted a wee bit too late, and then just made a complete hash of that. So that's a oh dearie me Jack moment. But then, you know, very shortly after, we've got a goal where Majowski scored, and it was offside. I mean, there was no ifs, ands, or buts about it, but very lucky for their goalie with that one. That was one that he would want back, basically hitting it off the back of our player. He's lucky it came off of our player and not one of their players, because I believe that wouldn't have been offside then at that point. But a bit of a funny rule, that one, when our guy doesn't, you know, intentionally pass it because it's hit off of him. But yeah, one of these things. But that would have lifted things back up again very quickly, and we didn't get that opportunity to have that done. And then what about Danilo's goal? You know, you've got Magoma cross in a, you know, like a rare Danilo goal is probably what I would say, mostly because he hasn't featured a lot in the last wee while, and he's been in and out even when he did feature. And it was an absolutely brilliant header. Initially, I thought, goalie, you reacted a wee bit slow to that, and he kind of still did. I would have been disappointed if it was Jack Butland that did that. Honestly, I would have been. But when you actually look at the goal back, and it was kind of how he managed to stretch, it was a wee bit. It wasn't exactly, you know, pinpoint on exactly where he needed it to get a bullet header in, and the goalie is scrambling. It was kind of behind. There wasn't a whole lot of power. So where he hit it to, in terms of the trajectory, in terms of the height, in terms of the speed, it was just one of these, kind of like slow motion, wasn't it? You know, where you're kind of like, that's all right, you know, we'll take that. And then our third goal, of course, is Youssef Chermiti finally getting a great goal. And it's finally because not scoring his first goal until late October, you know, after signing in relatively late August, is not a massive deal, especially when he hasn't started every single game and such. But the price tag is a bit of a noose around the poor fellow's neck, and it was a great finish, actually. I think the goalie, the power beat him. Obviously, I thought maybe there was some swerve on it, but when we see the replays on that, there was no swerve on it or anything. The goalie just kind of misread it or whatever. But that's, if you hit the target and you hit it with power, that's the sort of thing that can happen, and that's exactly what he did, and that was great. And we finished the game easily enough. We had another goal chalked off for offside by the rapidly improving, by the way, Mikey Moore. I mentioned on last week's pod that he had helped set up a goal for Tav I was it the week before, I can't remember now, and I'd said that's basically the first decent thing he's done for in a Rangers shirt, and I meant it. I don't mean that in an insulting way. He hasn't been good since he joined us, but he's creating more and more influence for himself in each of the games now, which is good. The goal was offside. It took them an age to absolutely see what everybody else seen almost the first time the replay came out of that. And as I say, we finished the game relatively easy. If there was any team going to score, it was going to be us, and we didn't get that. And here's the key, and I actually said this to someone over text yesterday, just after the game, was, and it goes back to what Danny Rowe was saying, my football philosophy is to set up the team to win games. Essentially, that's not exactly his words, but that's what I took from it. We worked harder than Kilmarnock yesterday for almost the entire game. And here's the key. So working hard, there's just no divine right to win any game. We need to work harder. But the key was that we used the advantages, the obvious advantages that we have as a football team over the opposition. Where we're saying these guys are better than these guys in that position. This guy can press that guy. This guy, and we used our height. We used our ability to hold up the ball. We used our ability to move the ball quickly. We used our speed, our pace. We used our reading of the game and such. And apart from, actually, to be fair to Jack Butland at the beginning of the second half there, he had an absolutely brilliant save. I thought it was a great save the very first time I saw it, and then when you see it back again, the Kilmarnock guy tried to do a Danilo and get that ball just squeezing right in there. His was a wee bit harder, and Butland had to dive full stretch and put it around the post. It was a brilliant save, so fair play to him for doing that. That was a game changer, literally and figuratively. It was a game changer, but that was using our advantage. We've got a goalie who can do that. They didn't have a goalie who could do that. Do you see what I mean? So when we're kind of comparing the players, that's the philosophy. And I imagine this would be relatively easy to do if you know what you're doing. If you genuinely know what you're doing as a football manager, that you could set things up to say, right, this guy is going to have more success in this position than this other guy, and we can attack this guy in this particular way and things like that. So that's what I noticed yesterday. That's certainly what came up for me. So long may that sort of philosophy continue, and we don't have to wait too long to see what that looks like anyway. So the positives, of course, is a first win at Ibrox of the league season. It's put us up to the lofty position of 5th in the table, and by the way, we're just one win away from 3rd in the table. And with the results that went the way that they did yesterday, a draw would probably have been better, but we're now only 5 points behind that mob. 2 wins in 9 games, we're only 5 points behind them, so they do not have their troubles to seek as well. And then obviously goals from Danilo and Chamiti were in both really good ones as well. It was good. It was a very efficient performance, and it was good just to be there and just enjoy the game. I was fortunate to enjoy it in the Orange County Rangers Supporters Club because I drove back up from San Diego on Saturday. There. The negatives, Butland's howler, an absolute stink bomb, but he did make up for that with the brilliant save. And other than that, no real negatives for me. I'm going to just enjoy the win and take the win. In terms of stats, 74% possession, 10 shots on goal with 6 on target. We scored 3 of those 6, so 50% of our shots went in. That's what we're targeting. I think that's what we should be looking for the whole time. Versus Kilmarnock had 6 shots on goal with 3 on target. I don't actually remember all 3, to be honest. The goal would have been one of them, and then the one that Butland saved. I don't recall the third one, but anyway, the referee on this one was Kevin Clancy, and I thought he got off to an okay start, but as the game went on, he's just very, very lenient for every other team that Rangers plays. And then he'll start brandishing yellow cards, typically to us first. And I think that's the way that it worked out for yesterday's game. And so they get leniency and we don't. So we're being refereed to a different standard even in game, which is just not good enough. I think it's poor. I just don't think he's a good ref overall, to be honest. But my key fear here, with the way that Kevin Clancy and other referees do that exact thing, is we're just more and more susceptible to wear and tear, to injuries, to being hurt, quite frankly. And that's his job, is to make sure that everybody, respects the laws of the game and doesn't go out to intentionally hurt anyone or anything like that. So I'm going to actually just give him, not from a very angry perspective, I'm going to give him a 5 out of 10. And I'm going to start calling this stuff out a wee bit more for what it is. And it's good to do that from a position of having won the game. So it's not sour grapes or anything like that. But I mean, I can see it. And if they have to watch the game back and watch it again, how they could deem one a foul and worthy of a yellow card and another one not, when it's basically the exact same thing, is just not good enough. It's incompetent, quite frankly. So that's that. So yeah, 1 win and 1 defeat in Danny Rio's first week in charge. And this week is, I mean, every week's a big week. I know I say that all the time, but this week is an especially big week because we're playing away to Hibs on Wednesday the 29th of October. And with the time difference, with us being an hour closer here in North America to the UK, that's actually a 3:45 kickoff in the Eastern Standard Time. And for us here, I guess that's going to be 1:45 p.m. in Calgary. So that will be something to look forward to, 7:45 p.m. UK. So I'm hoping I've got that one right. Usually this is the time of year that I completely make a mess of it and confuse everyone. So hopefully that is not the case. But we are playing the team immediately above us, and we have an opportunity with a victory there to leapfrog them. So back to what I said about using our strengths for our own betterment, if we can do that and really, get involved in a game, I imagine Hibs are going to bring it to us and stand up for ourselves and work harder than they will work, then we will win that game. And then we'll be back to third, or up to third, I guess I should say, for this season. And then it gives us an opportunity to look immediately at that mob and then see what happens if we can catch them, and then figure out what's going to happen with Hearts, who are absolutely flying here and don't look like they're stopping anytime soon. And I'll just go back to that Hearts game at Ibrox, where we were absolutely cheated beyond belief out of a victory, or at least a point that day. So, well, we'll see. And then the big one on the weekend is the Old Firm against that mob at Hampden, and that's on Sunday the 2nd of November at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. The clocks go back in North America here this weekend, so we're back to being that standard 5 or 7 or 8 hours behind, depending on where you're at on the continent. So don't forget about that and don't be sleeping in. It's for folks in Calgary, it's 7 a.m. in Calgary, so make sure you get down there for 7 a.m. Don't show up at 8 and wonder why there's already 45 minutes already have been played and you've missed 3 goals for Rangers at that point, please. I seen a gif for a meme or whatever. I can't remember what the ones are that are still. It's just a picture, and it said a stoppable force versus a movable object. You know that term of a unstoppable force versus an immovable object when you've got two things coming together and such. That's us versus them this weekend. Both of us are having a dodgy season, and it's kind of lame for both teams right now. So they're obviously in better shape than we are in Europe and domestically, but we have an opportunity and on the weekend to really determine, for me, honestly, who wants it more, who genuinely wants it more. And the team that wants it more is going to get the victory and go into the final here. And I'm confident that we will be playing St Mirren in the final. Actually, I don't even know who the other teams are, but it would be great if we're playing St Mirren in the final, and then that's good for Paisley and then good for Rangers because we'll beat them, and then that's as simple as that. We'll have the first trophy of the season. But yeah, we'll see. This team has a knack of surprising us, not in a good way this season, certainly domestically. So I have zero idea what's going to happen. 2 victories would be absolutely brilliant for us, and we need them, folks. We absolutely do. In terms of the shout-outs, just one last reminder for the 25th anniversary of the Rangers Supporters Club of Calgary this weekend at Pin Bar. We're going to be there about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We're going to have some drinks and some laughs, and I'll say a few words very, very briefly just to thank everybody for all their help and support over the 25 years, and then we'll put an Oasis concert on at some point for those that are into that sort of thing. That's on Saturday, November the 1st at Pin Bar, and we're actually making it purposefully the afternoon so that we can get up nice and fresh on Sunday morning and go back down there and enjoy the game. So that's the plan there. The Charity Foundation Ball tickets that I've been talking about over the last 2 or 3 or 4 episodes, whatever it was, have been claimed by Greg Taylor and his wife from Orlando Rangers Supporters Club. They're actually heading back home, so they are going to get an opportunity to get all suited and booted and head over to the Charity Ball there this coming Saturday night. I've never managed to get to the Charity Ball, and I'd love to do that at some point down the line here. So thanks again to the Charity Foundation for that very kind donation. I have a birthday shout out, and it's an early birthday shout out, and this is for our Rangers TV director Dan Bransfield from the Grey Bruce Loyal RSC, and he is celebrating his birthday tomorrow, still recovering from his hip surgery. Or was it his knees, or was it both? He's at that age, it could probably be both. And he is going to be celebrating his birthday tomorrow, and hopefully the team gives him a week of celebration with 2 very strong victories. Yesterday, just from a shout-outs perspective, I did want to say a very massive thank you to Brian Campbell and the family, Gaynor and Greg and Stella, for their kindness and hospitality. They housed us on Wednesday night. Erin and I went down Wednesday evening, and actually we got there Wednesday afternoon, and we went to do a wee bit of the touristy stuff, and then we had a chance to hang out with them, went out for dinner and had a couple of beers and such, and then we headed down to San Diego Thursday, came back on Friday, hung out with Brian and the kids, getting us back home right now, helping our mum, and we just had a great time. It was great to see them. Their hospitality is absolutely impeccable. It was a brilliant time, and great to just kind of have that. And we also had the opportunity to go to the Orange County Rangers Supporters Club yesterday, as I mentioned, and it was great to see all the boys and girls there. We had our former NARSA president and just general all round great guy Stuart McDougall was there with Gus Auld. Great to chat to Gus. Gordon and Graham Mathers were there, Davey, Neil, and of course Brian and Stella and Greg were there. They had to jet a wee bit early because Greg had his own football game as well. But brilliant. Just as I don't get to travel enough these days, and when I do, I would never miss an opportunity to go to a Rangers Supporters Club when I'm in town to see the folks, and it was great to see them, and great just to have a wee blether and see everyone from that. And the conference in and of itself was really good. I enjoyed it. I didn't learn quite as much as I thought I was going to learn. It's all about coaching, the type of style of coaching that I do, not sports coaching. And but I did enjoy it. It was good to be amongst people who are of a similar ilk and interest pool and things like that. So that was great. But thank you very much to Orange County Rangers Supporters Club and to Brian, Gaynor, Greg and Stella for everything as always. Just a quick reminder of Amanda and Jason Jr. Ross running the London Marathon in April on behalf of or in support of the Royal British Legion, and the Melbourne City Loyal Rangers Supporters Club Culture Weekend. That must be coming up here in basically about 3 weeks, just over 3 weeks. Now we have Ian Ferguson, Gary Stevens, Stuart Monroe all going, boat cruise, gala dinner, lots and lots of fun stuff going on. But here is the moment that probably 90% of you tuned into this particular episode for, and it's a bit of a drum roll to say that I'm delighted on behalf of the NARSA executive to announce that our event next year will be in Nashville, Tennessee. Nashville 2026. And that's going to be the second week in June again. And I think that's actually maybe three conventions in a row that we've had to do it the second week. And it's based on availability, because the week before that in Nashville, the city essentially is hosting the Country Music Association Festival, which basically takes over the entire city. Prices would be absolutely skyrocketed at that particular time if we were to do it then, and there's not a lot of availability for the types of styles of properties that we are looking at and for. So right now the dates are June the 11th to the 14th, and we'll solidify those days. It's definitely going to be that weekend, and the reason I'm hesitating a wee bit here is it might be the 12th to the 14th or something like that, and that's because we're still looking at the overall format of the event. I'd mentioned last week that we're going for basically what I had called NARSA Light, like a different type and style and feel of event next year, and then we'll go back to our more traditional type and style of event for the year after. And right now we are looking at properties. We don't have a property secured right now, and we are talking to the local tourist board. Brian has been extensively chatting with them over the last wee while and getting an opportunity to let them know about us and have us find out a wee bit more about how they can help and serve us as we try and take our event down there. And we were hoping, quite honestly, to get information so we could say it's in this particular property, but we do have a location in terms of an area of the city that we're trying to focus on for that, and we certainly have a price point that we're trying to look at as well, so that we get an opportunity to keep the price down. Nashville is an expensive city, so it's not going to be cheap and cheerful, but the type and style of event that we're hoping to put on is going to be something a wee bit more, if I could say, casual from that perspective, where it's not maybe going to be quite as formal as it has been over the last wee while. So we'll see what that looks like when we get down to finalising the property and what the property has in terms of amenities and things like that. We're being a wee bit more flexible in terms of what the actual itinerary is going to be. And for those who are really paying attention, you'll know that weekend is also the opening weekend of the World Cup, which is being held in Canada and America and Mexico. So we get an opportunity to watch some games, meaningful games that will hopefully provide us with a wee bit of entertainment as we are together and getting into it there. So the format, the property, the lineup, the pricing is all to be determined at this particular point, but it is going to be Nashville, and it's going to be the second weekend in June 2026. And you'll see some branded stuff coming out over the next wee while. Colin has been working very hard on that. And we're kind of rebranding it to Destination NARSA, and kind of removing the convention word, because it really is not a convention. It's a convention in name only. It's just a party. So Destination NARSA, and maybe we'll sunset the convention moniker for this particular event and see how it goes from there. And this is all, of course, from direct feedback that we received from the surveys, in terms of the type and style of event that people are looking for, the type and style of entertainment, the type and style of pricing and location and general feel and atmosphere and agendas for the event. So we're going to, you said, we heard, and we're going to act on that and take it seriously and see what we can do. So Nashville, I'm very excited about it, because I have never been to Nashville, primarily because I cannot afford it, but I have got 8 or 9 months now to save up and try and get myself down there, and we'll continue to give you some updates. So from next week's episode onwards, I will give you the countdown to Destination NARSA 2026, and we'll see how it goes from there. So there you go, folks. NARSA 2026, Nashville, Tennessee, USA. In terms of other NARSA business, we did actually have a meeting, an executive meeting last week. And that was Wednesday. It was actually not long. Actually, you know what? I had to take it from the car because I was at the Richard Nixon Museum and Library last week doing a wee bit of culture, because I'm so cultured, as you can probably tell. And I had to dial into the meeting, and then took the rest of the meeting from Brian's place. And the whole conversation was centered around the convention. So, or Destination NARSA. I should start to get myself used to maybe using that different wording as well. So there's nothing else really to report in terms of what we're doing and what's going on in terms of NARSA business and such. Communications for this week. The Jers Guide says that we have inside Ibrox for them from the Kilmarnock game yesterday available, and there's also additional footage on the press conference, post-match press conference with Danilo, and him talking about his goals and his lack of match action and things like that. On Tuesday is the loan review, and it's going to be the press conference for the Hibs game. On Wednesday is, of course, the Hibs game. There's also a feature for Rangers TV about the international review on the games that the Rangers team were involved in, or Rangers players were involved in. On Thursday, not a whole lot going on. Friday's the press conference for the Old Firm game. That takes place on the Sunday. Saturday, not a whole lot of stuff going on. And then Sunday is, of course, us versus them. And that is a 2 p.m. UK kickoff from there. And remember, the clocks go back in North America, so we're back to what the standard normal general timing or time difference is. So don't forget that, please. And then the women's team return on Sunday as well with a game away to Hearts in the Premier League, and that's a 4:10 p.m. UK kickoff. So if you wanted to be at both, technically, in theory, you could, and that's a good thing as well. Just another couple of wee bits and pieces. I know this show's a wee bit longer this week, but we did have some games to cover, and we did have an anniversary to cover, as well as an announcement. So it's been a jam-packed episode, and I hope it's been valuable for you. But the 4th kit was unveiled last week, and there's never a time. I've often commented on this podcast about the timing and how the kits are unveiled. I think Rangers could make a better, bigger, longer, more anticipatory splash about these. They just basically shove it in your face. You kind of anticipate the home one at the beginning of the season, but the remainder of them, it's just doesn't seem to be a process around it. And I know that the vendor or our manufacturer probably have a key say in that, but of course, having just come off of a bad result and having just been beaten in Europe, and then they're like, hey, come and buy more stuff from us. Of course, it's bright orange, which is always going to be a good seller, but I liked what they did because they had the musicians Nathan Evans and Alan Stevie from St. Phoenix in there to do the Four Lads, their take on Four Lads Had a Dream on that. That's good. That was nice to see, and I like that. And by the way, I think the shirt is exceptional. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. I just can't afford to buy another Rangers shirt this season, unfortunately. But yeah, never a good time to put them out. They probably maybe held off for a wee while and hoping the new manager bounce was going to help us get some sales there or whatever. Who knows what they think in the background in terms of the retail advertising and such. But that's out now, and if you're interested in that, go along and get it. Just another reminder, please, to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, please, when you get a chance. We are going to be having, after next week, we'll start to have some guests on. Next week will be a normal one because I have family visiting this week, and it's just going to be a wee bit too much to organise someone else's schedule to have someone else on for next week. But we'll get some guests on, we'll do some co-promotion, and we'd really, in order for us to be able to sell sponsorships and marketing opportunities to other organisations, we want to show a healthy following. And if you could, put that on for YouTube and for our regular podcast channel as well, that would be very, very, very much appreciated. And nothing else to talk about in terms of the women's team. Of course, it was international break, so we can figure that out over the next wee while. Okay, my friends, that will do it for this 250th episode of the NARSA Weekly Update. Thank you very, very much to everyone who has ever tuned in over the past almost 5 years. And please do share it with someone that you think might get a wee bit of value from it. It's someone else's take on what's happening in and around the club, and obviously some information that might be pertinent to your summer holidays for next year. But I would really appreciate if you could send it on to someone else. As always, folks, it's a big, big week. This one seems a wee bit more big, I should say, get my English right, and certainly a lot more poignant and significant for us as we're moving forward. 2 victories. It has to be 2 victories in order to give us an opportunity to look like and feel like we might be turning a corner, and I hope that's exactly what we get. We'll see what happens. Until next week, my friends, all the very best. Thanks again for tuning in. Please do take care of yourselves. Follow.